سبيل الدموع سبيل مريح تنهدى يا صاحي كي تستريح وبث الدعاء الخفي
نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإن لامرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها وامرأة يتزوجها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر عليه. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So the first one I narrated to you is the one which we find in, or we are reminded rather by our teachers in most of the books we study, which is about intentions. And the key part is innamal a'malu binniyat, that intentions or rather acts are based on intentions. A'mal and niyat. A'mal is the things we do, niyat is intention. So a'mal is with the physical parts of our body, the hands, the money, in the zahir, what's apparent, and the niyyah or the niyyah as we said are internal. And sometimes the external matches the internal and sometimes the external does not match the internal. So 4 real acts we can speak about if we speak about generally. First act is an act of worship. So when we have an act of worship, which we refer to as ibadah or ibadat, the plural, then in that case we need the intention in our hearts that we're doing this act of ibadah, this act of worship solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like we saw in the hadith, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, that person who is making hijrah in this case. I won't go into the discussion of the hadith and who Qais was and things like that, because that's not necessarily my aim for these types of short lectures. It's more a case of how we bring these ahadith into our day-to-day lives, or as we are calling this series, equipping the believer. So when we are offering an act of worship, then when we offer an act of worship, there has to be within that act of worship the niyyah, the intention that you are doing it solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That there is no intention to do it for anybody else or any other being or any other reason. Because if this act is done not for the pleasure of Allah, not for the intention or for the seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's acceptance or offering it to Allah, then this becomes problematic. For instance, a person is performing an act of worship, but he's actually doing it so people can see them. So we get our big tasbih out and we're doing adhkar, or we get the Quran out and recite audibly so that everybody can hear us, or we sort of make declaration that, oh, I've prayed that many nawafil, or I pray that many nawafil. Then in these cases, we have to really kind of analyze what we're doing. Are we doing these acts solely for the pleasure of Allah, or are we doing these acts for riyah, for show, for fakhr? So this is where, so these are when it comes to acts of worship. The next thing is when we look at, say, doing permissible acts with a good intention. So if we're doing a permissible act with a good intention, then we have to look at as to whether that intention is, what's the intention behind it. So if it's a good intention, then obviously there's no harm. But if the intention is something else, so let me give you an example. Say there's a bunch of friends or brothers and sisters, and they want to do a favor for a brother or a sister, or they want to do a favor for a parent. So they do that favor, but what they want to do is they also want people to recognize them for that. So they share this with others, that, oh, I do this for my mother, or I do that for my father, or I do that for my siblings, or whatever. So what they're doing there is not only are doing this good act, but in reality, they're not doing it for that person. In reality, what they're doing it for is they want recognition for it. Or they might be sharing the two. They want to do this act for their family member, but they also want to be recognized for it. Now, if that's the case, then again, it's problematic if this person is wanting to seek reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there will be no reward given because this person's intention was not there. So that's number 2. So those are good acts with the incorrect intention. The third one is impermissible acts with the good intention. Now, the reason why I mention this, you hear this so often now, where people say, well, my intention was good. So they do an impermissible act and they say, well, my intention was good. So for instance, we say, oh, we need to get more Muslim brothers into the masjid, or we need to get more Muslim sisters towards Islam. So we invite them towards Islam, or we make da'wah to them, or we call them by doing an impermissible act. So for instance, we might say, let's hold a fashion show, or let's have a catwalk or something, so we can get the sisters in. So they'll come in to obviously wanting to see the models on the catwalk, and then afterwards we can make dawah to them. Or let's have a, get together and listen to some music together. So what we'll do is when we listen to this music together, we'll get the brothers in, and once we've got the brothers in, then we switch the music off eventually and start talking to the mu'adhin. An impermissible act, even with a good intention, is of no use whatsoever. It's still impermissible. So that's the third type. And the fourth type is an act which we would call mundane. Mundane we mean is sort of the day-to-day act. Eating food, drinking water, sleeping, walking. Things that which we see as no real kind of benefit apart from that you have to do it. Well, if those acts have a good intention, for instance, that I'm going to go to sleep. Why? So that my body builds up strength. And when my body builds up strength, I'll be able to get up for Fajr. I will be able to pray, and I'll be able to work. Or the day when we go to work. So we go to work, we all have to go to work. We may be going there to earn money. But we have the intention that, Ya Allah, I'm going to go to work so that I can earn halal money, so I can look after my family with halal means. Then this mundane act also becomes an act where a person can achieve reward. So here we see a'mal and niyat. So if ever, when the second part of the hadith, if ever we're doing an act, a permissible act, a mundane act, then we have to see what is our motivation and what is our goal for that act. Is our motivation and goal for seeking the pleasure of Allah and as a result expecting reward? Or is our motivation and goal to impress somebody, to be held in higher esteem amongst our peers, to be given shabash on our back or whatever? Is that what we're doing for? And if it's that what we're doing for, then this obviously act becomes a problem. And even though it may be perceived as a good act, there is no reward for this person. And in fact, all they will get is whatever they seek in the dunya. Whereas those people who do these acts with good intention and obviously see them through and have the intention that I'm doing this to please Allah, then that person will also be rewarded for them in the hereafter. One other point is we hear a lot about these kind of fundraisers, and I get these kind of questions quite often, that look, these fundraisers, they charge a certain amount of money. So it's a restaurant, for example, and at this restaurant you can book a table of 5, and when you book a table of 5, it costs £80 or something, and all the proceeds are going to the particular project, some orphanage or something like that. Am I rewarded for this? Because I've got good intention. Well, the issue that comes up here is that this is an act of what we call sadaqah. And an act of sadaqah is that type of act, is that type of transaction, if I can use that word, in which you give and expect nothing in return. So in reality, it's the restaurant that's actually giving sadaqah, because they're providing their food and they're providing their services for free. Or it could be that the food is actually priced at, say, £40 and you're paying £80, and then you're paying extra because the £40 goes towards the cost of the food and the other £40 goes towards the actual project. So when a person gives here, then they have to look at their intention. So if their intention is to eat, then they will not get no reward at all, because their intention was to be fed food and they paid for that. If they know that this costs £30 and they're actually giving £80, then the £50 will become sadaqah and the £30 is the food that they've bought. So it's not just a case about one's intention, it's also a case, it's not just a case about one's act rather, but it's also a case about one's intention behind that act. So as a reminder before we finish off, the 4 points to bear in mind. An act of worship, the intention has to be solely for the pleasure of Allah. Because once you start sharing an act of worship for the sake of others, then this is bordering on shirk. This is now literally ascribing partners with Allah, that you're offering your salah to Allah, and you also want to share for your fame. You also want to share for people giving you shabash. You also want to share so people hold you in high esteem. Then it comes to permissible acts. If we do permissible acts with a good intention, then we will be rewarded for them. Okay, this will be like helping our parents, helping our siblings, helping somebody cross the road, things of that nature, where we're not seeking any favor from anyone, we're not seeking fame, we're not seeking any shabash, we're doing it for that purpose. The third one is this act, which is an impermissible act, which we do with a good intention. One shouldn't be fooled that just because one has a good intention, they will be rewarded for it. An impermissible act is just that, impermissible. And then our average sort of mundane day-to-day acts, if we conduct them with the right intention, then inshallah ta'ala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us there. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بث الدعاء الخفي الصريح يسعك الفضاء الرحيم الفسيح.